Well, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. We had a little last-minute panic there, but we came through okay. I really want to thank Nathan for asking me to come speak today at the summit. I'm very excited about it. I do have to apologize, though. I'm a degreed engineer from 30 years ago, and I've been spending the last 30 years trying to become more exciting. And so now I have to follow Nathan. So bear with me. Everybody here on the right side of the auditorium, I'm assuming, is right brain thinking, and everybody over here on the left side is left brain thinking. So you're going to need to use both sides of the brain to follow what I'm going to talk about today. But one of the things that I really want to highlight what Nathan was just talking about, when I think one of his rules was getting rid of the word can't. And one of my everybody has a lot of favorite sayings from a lot of leaders over many years, and I have a lot of them myself that I've used and enjoy. But one of the ones that I've always enjoyed the most was from Henry Ford. And one of his famous sayings was, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, either way you are correct. And the origins of that, for those of you who don't know, is Henry Ford, obviously Ford Motor Company, highly successful. He invented the V8 engine, and back at that period of time, back in the 1920s, all the engines at that time were in a straight line. Your cylinders were in a straight line, whether you had 6 cylinders or 8 cylinders. And Henry Ford came up with the idea of putting them in a V shape, which is where the V8 engine came from. And all his engineers told Henry Ford that can't be done. So he got rid of all of them. And that's when he came up with the saying, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, either way you are correct. And of course, Henry Ford then succeeded in building the V8 engine, and that's one of my favorite sayings. So I just following on I didn't know what Nathan was going to talk about today, but I wanted to lead in with that. Appreciate the introduction, Nathan. Appreciate being here. I have 30 years of manufacturing experience. I am a Pennsylvania native, born and raised in the Pittsburgh area. Graduated from Penn State University in 1984 with a degree in engineering. Spent the first couple years in industry and manufacturing applications as an engineer, and then quickly got into supervision management. Over the last 30 years, I've had general management positions, executive level positions in manufacturing companies. I started my career here in Pennsylvania, 5 years up in the Williamsport area in a little town called Muncie, PA. And then I spent 5 years in the Lancaster County area for a company over there, my first 10 years. In the last 20 years, I have been all over the United States and literally other parts of the world. I spent quite a bit of time in the South, in Georgia, Alabama, Texas. I've worked in Illinois, New York, Virginia. I spent a year and a half in China, starting up a manufacturing company over there in the years from 2008 to 2010. One of the employers I worked for over the years had international operations in Europe, so I spent quite a bit of time in Europe. About 3 years ago, I joined a company, Hitachi Metals, which actually has a plant up in Lawrenceville, PA, which is on the New York-Pennsylvania border. So I spent quite a bit of time with their operations in Korea, Japan, India, and what have you. I've been doing consulting for the past 9 years. I'm doing it full-time now for the past year and a half. I don't have a very creative name for my company other than I just call it what I do, and help manufacturing companies with their management and technology, and helping them or helping you achieve operational excellence. So a little bit of my background. We can go to the next slide. What I'm really excited about working with Purple Deck is the NFC technology, cloud management, content control. I got introduced to this earlier this year, actually, February timeframe, when I met Jim and Nathan and got introduced to what they do. And as I was in conversations with them, I didn't know what NFC was, I had no idea. So I Googled it, like we all do now, and learned a little bit more about it, and got intrigued with what they were doing with it, with their marketing strategies. When I got the idea, I was like, hey, I said, there's a lot of potential applications for this in the manufacturing industry. And at that time, I'd recently moved back to Pennsylvania, my hometown in Pittsburgh, and even though I have clients all over the world, I do have the desire to help Pennsylvania companies and get manufacturing, you know, back, you know, in the United States, where I think we can compete quite well. So I was thinking about this technology that they have and all the experiences I've had over the years with different manufacturing systems and so forth, and just started, you know, talking to Jim and Nathan more than anybody, and we just started to collaborate and come up with all kinds of ideas that, hey, this process that you guys use for marketing actually can be very implemented very successfully in manufacturing companies, and it has evolved just in the past 8 months. What Purple Deck is doing now with their packaging services, inventory tracking. The next natural progression is the full manufacturing spectrum, from the shop floor raw materials coming in, tracking work in progress to finished goods, and then the warehousing and packaging. So there's a pretty exciting technology that I think can revolutionize the way manufacturing companies monitor their processes and so forth and so on. And what was interesting about talking to Nathan initially was, you know, one of the things that that I've had experience with over the years, especially with the younger generation, you know, coming in, manufacturing workers, is, you know, everybody has these mobile devices, cell phones, Androids, whether you're Android or iPhone, tablets and so forth, and these are actually banned in many manufacturing plants. There's workers are asked to leave them in their car, or not allowed to bring them. They get in trouble for using them. They're considered productivity drainers, if you will. But embracing the technology, it actually can be flipped 100%, and these things can actually be used to eliminate mainframe computers, big elaborate servers, barcode readers, all the hardware and so forth. So it's pretty revolutionary when you think of it that way. So what I want to talk about today is just an overview of where we are in our development of using NFC technology and Purple Deck's cloud management and content control. And so the process starts with an NFC tag. Then it goes to the content strategy. I'm going to talk a little bit more detail of these 5 steps in just a little bit, but just to review them all. And then manufacturing strategy. This is where the rubber hits the road, where, okay, we have a manufacturing plant. What are we going to do? How are we going to utilize this technology and these tags? And then a reporting strategy, the information, how is that information going to be collected? How is the information going to be used? And what are the benefits of it are going to be? And then, of course, the customization of that. And Janelle, you can go to the next slide. So first, I want to talk a little bit big picture. And this is a typical flow or a chart that shows your inputs, your outputs. Transformation system in the beginning would be your manufacturing plant. Your inputs are your capital, your materials, equipment, facilities, labor, you can read. These all get transformed into some type of product that you're going to sell. It could also be used in the service industry. This flow chart is actually applicable to not just manufacturing companies, but any kind of service industry, hospitals and what have you, but specific to manufacturing. And if you look at, and I apologize for not having a laser pointer here, but if you look at where all the data is coming in, you got data coming in from your outputs, you got data coming in from the actual processes itself, and then on the environment itself, where you can monitor different things going on the outside of your processes, and how that data comes back into monitoring and control, back into the inputs, and it's just a continuous improvement loop, if you will. So I want to. This is the essence of manufacturing, where you're monitoring your inputs, converting your materials, and then creating your outputs. But the data coming in, to me, is where this technology really can make a company with a huge competitive edge. You know, one of the things that has been scaring a lot of people, if you will, in my industry over the last well, quite frankly, 25, 30 years is globalization. You know, we live in a global economy. That's not a bad word. We have to embrace that. We do live in a global economy. Whether the stuff is made here in the United States or it's made in Malaysia or made in China or made in India, that still doesn't mean that the United States can't compete with those countries. The experience that I had in China was really interesting back, this is getting to be a little dated now, 2008 to 2010 now being history, but at that time over in China, and I got to visit a lot of plants over there and had a lot of experience in the United States as well, so I was able to compare. But at that time, it was taking about 8 Chinese factory workers to do what an equivalent plant here in the United States could do. So when you think about that, but at that time, I think the 2009 timeframe, the labor rate in China was about 75 cents an hour, and fully loaded, because the government does tax that with their value or overhead taxes for labor and what have you. It was costing companies about $1.10 an hour. So when you looked at that, multiply that by 8, you know, you come up with about $8.80 an hour. Let's round it up to 9. So now we got $9 an hour. So the companies in the United States, well, how can we compete with 75 cent an hour labor? Well, you're not competing with 75 cent an hour labor. You're competing with $9 an hour. Well, you know, $9 an hour back then is, you know, the McDonald's, the Walmart jobs. We're talking about manufacturing folks that are making $15, $20, $25 an hour, you know, what we call workable living wages. But where the United States, how you compete with that is with innovation, with automation, so forth and so on. And that's where, to me, this is knocking on the door of revolutionary ways of gathering information off the shop floor in an instantaneous fashion and increasing the efficiencies to the point where we can compete with those companies. Now, fast forward to 2015. Does anybody in this room know what the fully burdened labor rate in China is today? I just told you it was $1.10 an hour in 2009. Does anybody know? It's between $4 and $5 an hour. That's how fast that economy is growing over there, and how that workforce is embracing the money, and they're all wearing jeans, and they all have cell phones now, and they're not riding bicycles anymore. Now they got mopeds, and soon they're going to have motorcycles, and soon they're going to have cars. So what has happened? Well, what's happened is the work's now going to other third world countries like Malaysia or Vietnam or India, and then we're like, oh, we still freak out. Well, how are we going to compete with India? India is now 35 cents an hour. Well, that's true. But you can't get product in and out of India. And then you have currency fluctuations and so forth and so on. Well, this has been going on for decades. So the time to quit work, the time to stop worrying about it is now, and just compete. How do we compete? And you compete. The United States has always competed with innovation. When Henry Ford invented the assembly line back whenever it was in the teens, that was innovation. Gun manufacturers and all of the innovation we've had in this country has been phenomenal. And if you look at what's been driving the economy over the last 2 decades, the Googles and the computers and what have you, now we can marry them all together. So go to the next chart. And I'm assuming you are familiar with the NFC tags, but there are some displayed outside. But they come in all kinds of different variations. There's over 500 different ways, or these tags come in all kinds of different forms, not just the stickers that you see. Wristbands, the one on the right up there, the shadow with 2 holes in it, that's actually a hard plastic, can be riveted to a part. It's got high temperature applications. These things can be used in environments up to 1600 degrees. So that's pretty, you have to know that going in, because it's not just putting stickers on things. There's all kinds of ways of using these tags throughout the processes. So go ahead, Janelle. So I got 3 slides on content strategy and then just 1 slide on the rest, because this is really where I just want to show where a little bit of brainstorming and talking to some people in industry where these things can be used. And the product identification is an obvious one, where you're identifying your raw material, you're identifying your work in progress and finished goods. And just to give you an example of content, how this can be changed on the product, let's say you have one of these tags on your product, whatever it is you're manufacturing, whether a railroad part, an automotive part, what have you. and then you have it in, it changes its format throughout the process, changes its alphanumeric identifiers, and then you have the work in finished goods in stock, and then once you ship that product or send it to your customer or to the next value-added person, you can change the identifier on it. And so that's one way of one huge application for content strategy. Next slide. Then you have manufacturing process steps where the product can be coming through the plant. You take your reader, whether it be your cell phone or a tablet, and you can pull up the information for, am I at the right step? What are the work instructions? Storeroom applications. You've got your parts in the storeroom that can be all identified just with instantaneous tapping your phone or your tablet. You know, all the information can come up on where its location is, what the quantities, what the reorder points, capital equipment. Think of a manufacturing plant that has expensive capital equipment throughout the facility where you have these tags on the equipment itself where either a worker can go up and tap the tag and find out its history, when it was installed, when it's due for preventive maintenance, or what its value is. Accounting can use it for depreciation value. There's all kinds of ways of thinking about how that information can be utilized in a manufacturing environment. Next slide. Hard tooling. For those of you who are experienced with manufacturing process, there's always some kind of hard tooling used that conveys the parts through or is used as a forging device or a tooling, what have you. These devices can be identified as well, where how long they've been in usage, how many shots are put on them, what the change histories of these tools are. These are all very elaborate, expensive ways, the current technology, very expensive, elaborate, of keeping track of all this important information. But with the NFC technology and the content changing proprietary system that Purple Deck has, you know, these are things that can revolutionize these existing systems. Next slide. Oh, well, no, keep the slide. I'm sorry. I apologize. Then labor tracking. Labor tracking is huge because this is where you get into the workers. Imagine a worker can come to work with his cell phone or his wristband or whatever, and he's interacting with these NFC tags. And it's so important to think about our future, you know, where the workers today are 20 years old, 30 years old, in their early 40s. You know, they're very familiar and experienced with these devices. And when you can start to think about ways, for those, any of you who've ever worked in a manufacturing environment or supervised a manufacturing environment, when you can take your workers and actually get them interactive and involved, it's an amazing morale booster, and it's an amazing efficiency increaser where once the worker feels like he's a part of the process, it just does an amazing transformation in his mind or as a collective group. And I can envision, you know, efficiencies being increased substantially. And then you have where you can have rapid deployment of, just an example, let's say you have 50 workers in a particular department. They all come to work. They slide either the wrist cards or their cell phones in. Who's here, who's not here? Maybe we got 45 people. Well, we're expecting 50. We got 45. Well, now the supervisor or the managers can rapidly deploy these people through the plant, not waste a lot of time. Let's get done with what we can get done. So, so that employee interaction, I think, with, you know, the human resources department and supervision and management is really key. So the next slide. Hopefully not boring you too much. This will be the third step in the process, manufacturing strategy. So, you know, as a manufacturing company, you have to have a strategy. So this would be where I call where the rubber hits the road. Deployment of these tags throughout. So you can just envision these tags throughout the factory on the equipment, the parts we talked about before. This is a little bit of redundant to the content, but labor reporting. QC checkpoints, where you can have a part going through the plant, and if it's on step 3 and you pull up the QC checkpoints and it wasn't checked at step 2 because somebody missed it, then you can immediately stop the process, send it back to step 2, make sure it's its quality checkpoint, boom, move it back up to step 3. The way that would be done today would make it all the way to the end of the line, and we'd find out it was either has to be scrapped or reworked, and waste a lot of time. So there's all this rapid deployment of information is very critical. Asset management, the capital equipment. Sorry, I can't read my own writing. I got to look. Yeah, the equipment. Maintenance and plant engineering applications where a worker can go up to a piece of equipment and, traditionally you'd have a computer spit out a bunch of PM, predictive maintenance or preventive maintenance work instructions. He has to take them out to the floor on a clipboard or wherever he does his work, and then he has to check, that he got the work done. Here he can just go right up to the piece of equipment, take his tablet or his phone or whatever device that the company is using, and here comes the instructions. Boom, you do the work, and then you input in that the work's done, and it's done. No paper, it's done. Worker involvement substantially increases the chance that the work actually does get done. And then you have vendor identification. If you have vendors that have parts or part of your vendors supplying parts into your plant, that can be identified. You can interface it in with your vendors. Sure, everybody in here or heard of material safety data sheets. All that information, all those books go away. If you have a barrel of a chemical or whatever, you want to know what's in it, boom, you just tag it. The information can come up instantaneously. Next slide. So then the fourth step is reporting strategy. And this is a typical dashboard. When you think of, for the marketing people that are in the room, you guys use the word analytics. Same thing. In the manufacturing, you want, what's this data telling us? And this is a typical dashboard where it's taking all the key KPIs, what we call key productivity indicators in the plant. And the difference between where the new technology can make things happen is where traditionally maybe this information is one day old or this is a weekly report or something along those lines. You can actually have instantaneous 24/7, 365 data coming to the supervisors, coming to the managers on perhaps on their mobile devices. Whereas the workers are putting the information in, using this technology to gather up the information, it's immediately being uploaded into the report cards, or the analytics are being monitored by the managers that are responsible for it. And that's another way that this can be utilized. Purple Deck, one of the things I really like about what Purple Deck does, if you look at their history, is they have a lot of security on this information. So, you might be thinking, well, my mainframe's secure, or my own level of servers, I have firewalls, I have this. It makes it all obsolete. It's just completely obsolete. The information is being captured, used for what it's supposed to be used for, and then it's over. Next slide. So what's the customization? Well, the customization is, to be the edge of the leading edge. I mean, that's how far advanced we are. I mean, this is technology. We're on the edge of the leading edge. So sitting down with Purple Deck or with your, you will have to involve your IT people, of course, but sitting down with your engineers and your manufacturing people and just thinking about ways that we can use this technology is important. Go ahead to the next slide. I'll wind this down. So now we're back to the feedback loop, but now I've drawn a cloud around it because that's really where the cloud management comes into play. So when you think about traditional mainframes and servers and all the way that information is gathered today, all the reports that are being generated, the meetings that are being held, and what do we do next, and action plans and so forth, now just becomes in the cloud, instantaneous information, and now we can make those rapid adjustments that we need to do. And why do we do all this? Next slide. Because that instantaneous feedback loop manufacturing leads to better decision making, quicker adjustments, better efficiencies, and what the whole purpose of being a business in the first place is: increase your profitability and increase the ways for U.S. companies to become more competitive. So that's my presentation today. I thank you for your time, and thank you very much.